Obviously, a lot of optimistic about this team this year. I want to get your thoughts of getting this team back on track for this new season.
Well, we're just excited to get started. They put a lot of hard work in the fall, and you know, it's fun when you see a bunch of guys kind of mature right in front of your eyes. And with the new rule changes, it was a little different for us because we actually got to scrimmage against some outside competition, and we were pleased because you get tired of looking at yourself in the fall, and sometimes you can't really gauge because when the heart rates get going, you see a different player. So we were able to evaluate that. We got a chance to see that firsthand, and we liked what we saw. But you know, the fall's the fall, so we'll see what happens in the spring.
You know your team well. You know the personnel on it. I want to get your thoughts of what you're liking about your team this year.
Well, I mean, it's been funny because we've always started the season and a lot of guys still trying to figure out positions and guys playing, you know, on multiple things and changing around. Whereas now, for the most part, I don't want to say there's a set lineup because those things are always up for grab, but we have a pretty good idea of who's going to be where. And so when we have that comfort level, then they also have that comfort level. I think the pitching piece of it, some of the arms that we added, are definitely going to make a difference. As you know, last year scoring runs and things were not really the matter. The defensive piece of it, guys are older now, so I think defensively will be better. But I'm really optimistic and pleased with what I saw on the mound, the improvements that we made there. So, again, we'll see how that all translates this spring.
Coach, back-to-back losing years for you. I know Ray Anderson gave you a vote of confidence, but obviously this year, based on a storied program, there are big expectations. Your thoughts of, winning this year, or potentially you might be somewhere else next year?
Well, there's no. Let me put it this way. So when you do this job, whether it's at any program, I mean, you have pride in yourself and how you do it, and it's not a word that people like to use around here in terms of building, but there are some things that we identified that needed to be done. And we're very comfortable with where we are right now. And if you get into this profession making decisions based on the fear of the outcome of what I always call short-term decisions on being employed or not, then you probably shouldn't get into this profession. So what you do is you have conviction, you have a plan, you execute that plan. And when you execute that plan, there's going to be tough times, there's going to be good times. And so as far as that, I can't comment. I mean, not that I can't comment. I don't really sit around and think about that. So I guess if your question is, do I fear losing my job? Absolutely not. So I don't know if that's what you wanted out of that answer or not, but that's how I would answer that. So again, that's not even in the back of my mind. I got a group in that locker room of kids that I enjoy coaching personally, that I believe understand what it takes to be here and want to be here, and that's why you get into coaching. So looking forward to it.
Coach, when you reflect back on last year, there were some good moments from this team where you looked like you were heading on the right track, but then there'd be step backs. When you look back at last year, what ultimately, in your case, went wrong and has to improve to right the ship?
Well, I think defensively, I mean, I was thinking about that the other day. We go into Oregon State. Obviously had a pretty good year last year, and it wouldn't have been a fluke, from a talent standpoint. It wouldn't have been a fluke to come out of there winning 2 out of 3 on the road and playing Stanford tough. But we were, again, I hate verbalizing it because sometimes people misinterpret what you say, but we were the youngest team in the country, literally. I mean, it was the youngest team in the country, and when you have youth, you have ups and downs. But what I like about that is I think we can turn that youth of last year into the experience piece. So every inning those guys played, every situation we were in, success or failure was another notch in the belt towards experience. And so when you feel like you have the right personalities, you have the right talent level, and now we have a lot more experience than we had last year, we feel that's going to translate.
Was it hard hearing it from the fans? Because there's a lot of loyal fans and backers that have been following this program for years. They've been here through the glory times, and once again, they have high expectations when they come to this ballpark to see this team perform.
Well, they should have high expectations, but I'll say it again, and I don't, and I don't say this in a confrontational way, but you don't listen to that stuff. You focus on what the task is. The task is getting this place back to what we all want it to be, and if you lose sight of that, then you lose sight of the ultimate goal, which is be in the conversation for a national championship. We want here sustainable success. And to do that, you have to lay a strong foundation. And we were not willing to we were not willing to compromise, we were not willing to do things that maybe would be in the terms of short-term success. Do I understand people's frustrations and things like that? Absolutely. I mean, I'm not oblivious to that point, but I'll reiterate that's not the motivation of what we do every day in trying to please a group of people. We want to represent Arizona State University at the highest level, on and off the field. And to do that, sometimes tough decisions have to be made. And I appreciate the support that Ray Anderson's given me and that Dr. Crow's given me. But that's one of the reasons I came here, because the things that I think they believe in to the core as leaders of the institution and of our athletic department, and an extension of me, I guess, the baseball program, is culture is everything. So we're going to do it the right way. So we'll let that play out this spring.
Boyd kind of talked about it. He brought this to light, that there might have been some selfishness on this team, some bad eggs in this clubhouse. Do you think that was the case last year, Coach?
Yeah, I'll let those things up for interpretation, but I'll just say this: that we're comfortable with where we are now. And anytime, I don't care whether it's a classroom, a business, a sports team, or whatever, you're going to have a variety of personalities. And what you're always striving to do is to get those personalities to mesh and be pulling in the right direction. And that's the challenge of coaching. I don't care if you ask any coach within the athletic department. So I'll say it, and you can read between the lines. We're comfortable with where we are right now, and I'm comfortable with what's in that locker room right now.
Boyd Vanderkoy, he had a good year last year. How does he take the next step to be a leader on the mound for this team?
Well, you get it done. I mean, you earn your stripes by not just talking about it, but by doing it on the field. And he was thrust into a pretty prominent role for us out of necessity, if you will, to compete at a high level early in his career. Not that
hasn't
been done, but I said the challenge last year was sometimes most oftentimes in those cases when you're maybe a freshman thrown in a Friday night expectation, or even Saturday, is you can look to this guy or that guy and say, okay, I can learn from that upperclassman. We didn't have a lot of that. I think the beauty of now is we've got some talented freshman arms that can now look towards him of having that experience. He's worked hard on his body. He's worked hard on his mindset. He battled through some physical things last year, and I think for the first time in a long time, he's healthy and ready to go. So we'll look forward to what he does and how he leads the guys coming out this spring.
How about Spencer Torkelson? He has such an amazing freshman year, Coach. I mean, dazzles with the 25 home runs, sets the ASU freshman home run record, breaking Bonds' mark. What does he do? How does he get better? How does he replicate or even try to get better?
Well, he was walking around here with his parents yesterday. I joked around with him. We just spent a considerable amount of money on you can see the facility improvements, and part of those improvements were moving the fences in. And I said, so you know what, Torque, that just automatically translates to 35 home runs. We don't mess around with 25 home runs. But, and I'll say that, I guess, in the gist of some of your normal theme questions you were asking, is there's a lot good that happened. I know, you get lost sometimes in the wins and losses pieces of it, and ultimately at the end of the day, we're all evaluated by wins and losses. But you brought him up, so I will say, that's the first time in the history of college baseball that a freshman has been a home run leader. And you think about not just the names out on that wall, but of all of college baseball. So good things are happening. We're going to build off of what he did. Do we expect him, or is it automatic that he's going to do what he did last year? I don't know. A lot of that goes into it. He snuck up on people last year. Who's this freshman? Wasn't drafted. Guys were pitching to him. I think the challenge for him is realizing guys are going to look at him differently. We're going to have some protection around him, so it's going to be a team thing. It's not going to just be him. So if we get quality hitters that can protect him hitting and he gets pitches to hit, I would assume he's going to have a pretty good year again.
How will you try to protect him this year? Who will you try to put him around?
Well, you talked to one just here before, but I think Hunter Bishop had a tremendous fall for us. A guy that didn't play for us last year in Cole Austin, Carter Aldretti, will be the first one to remind you that he beat Torkelson in the Cape Cod home run hitting contest. So, but we've got plenty of capable players. Gage Workman is bigger, stronger this year. So those will be some of the tinkering things that we will do early in the season, but we feel like we have some options that will give him that protection that he needs.
I know he moved around in the lineup, but do you see him possibly going back to the leadoff, or
Who's that?
Torque?
Who knows? It's one of those things where you've got one of your best hitters, or if not one of the best hitters in the country, depending on the roles and how guys ultimately shape up in that. But you want that guy coming to the plate as much as possible. So I wouldn't rule anything out, but the biggest thing is just making sure he gets quality pitches. And the beautiful part about him is he's willing to take a walk, he's willing to go the other way to whatever the team, to win. But clearly the best formula for success is having guys on base ahead of him and let him pop one out of here. So we'll see.
Coming out of the fall and now just starting spring practice, how close are you to sort of defining your pitching roles?
Well, I think we're pretty close because I would say there's probably 3 or 4 guys that are making a run at the weekend starter position. We've got quality guys. It goes back to the experience piece. I think we got a couple new arms in Dabovich, Tolman, Brazil, to name a few. There's others, but those guys, in my mind, have shown at times the ability to step right in and beat. But again, until you see them in Pac-12 play to know how they're going to respond to an environment where there's 15,000 people, I think that's the biggest variable. So, but we're in a much better position than we were last year.
And then Marsh and Vanakoy of the returners are weekend starting candidates.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say Alec Marsh probably made the most significant jump from where he was last year. And I go back to, it's like a normal formula. We just haven't had a normal formula around here, but what he did as a freshman, okay. What he did as a sophomore, it was like this. At times it was fantastic, at times not so fantastic. But now it's the consistency piece, being a junior now in the program of expected to lead the staff. But if we're starting out of here today, I would feel very comfortable giving him the ball on Friday night. So, and his velocity is I think Kat's done a wonderful job with him in all aspects of making him a legitimate Friday night starter in the Pac-12.
Boyd says he's healthy. Has he been throwing in fall ball so far?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we, like I said, we had the luxury of having some outside competition, and he was competing very well in that. And we were guarded with him. We didn't need to win a championship in the fall, so. But he pitched competitively very well. I think the interesting battle is going to be who's going to be that Sunday guy. Dabovich certainly has shown that he has the ability to do that. Tolman came on very strong at the end, and you know what? I'm always one that you get what you deserve. So there's probably going to be some guys that will push that as well, and then certainly midweek stuff. So I like the competition piece. The good part is you got a group of guys that have just said, hey, wherever you need me, I'm willing to do it. Blake Brazil, the freshman, everybody wants to start. Everybody wants to be a starter, but he said, hey, if I got to be at the back end and helps us win games, I'll do that too.
Do you view Carter as being kind of the Swiss Army knife of just plugging in wherever he's needed, or do you want to try and find a definite role for him?
Well, I think he's certainly one of our better players. He brings a lot to the table, not just from a physical standpoint, but you talk about our locker room. I mean, he's a key part of our locker room. The good part for him is he does have flexibility. Here's a guy that has played in the infield for us. He's played in the outfield. I think he's of the mindset as we are that, hey, let's get our best 9 guys out there, and if that's you moving here, he's like, hey, put me wherever you need me. And when you start getting that type of mindset, that's when you start making some progress. But yeah, I would assume he could play third, he could play short, he could play second, he could play right. All of those things. We haven't gotten him to buy into first yet, but no, he's willing to bounce all over. And you have to have guys like that. If you look at even the major league level of some of the successful baseball teams, I think it was Obrist, like with the Cubs, guys that can bounce around and play multiple positions are truly very, very valuable.
In those live action fall games, did you see some of the defensive improvement you wanted to?
Yeah, I thought we picked the baseball up really well, and part of that comes from just knowing where you're going to play. If you go back to last season, I mean, Swift was our opening day guy. Alika Williams ended up, but it's funny, you got 3 guys, 3 this year that when they go off and play in the summer, they're all probably going to play shortstop for their team. But I think that we've kind of honed in on who's going to be third, who's going to be, and when you do that and you play every day and you get those reps, it just makes you more comfortable in those, what I say, those 3 to 4 situations that make plays when the game's on the line. That was, I thought, our Achilles heel last year. we'd play great, we'd show these flashes, and then through either inexperience, guys out of position, trying to do too much, or just all-out panic, we'd make a couple plays that would ultimately cost you a game at this level. But I like the fact that the guys are more experienced and more comfortable with where they're playing.
Is there stuff you do in the fall that kind of helps in those late game situations to kind of add pressure to things when they're going through?
Yeah, I mean, there's certain drills, but you can never simulate a game. You can never simulate the bottom of the ninth and winning around a third. And I don't care what sport you're talking about. I think we saw that the Bears. The Bears crushed me yesterday. I knew he was going to kick that through, and then as soon as he kicked it through, the pressure. As soon as somebody figures that formula out, they'll make a lot of money. But you try to do that. But really, in our sport, that's why they have minor leagues, is to give guys repetition, so that it becomes rote, so that it becomes something they can do without thinking. And I'll say it, and I don't care about the backlash. We were very young last year, and we had a lot of guys, playing there a lot. And what helps sometimes to alleviate that is looking to your right or your left and seeing somebody that's done it. We just didn't have that, and so I feel really good about our freshmen that are in this program right now. I'm very fortunate to have some guys with some experience that they can learn from. So just reps. I think the reps are going to help.
From a pitching staff perspective, do you think these guys have a little bit better mindset in terms of being aggressive in the zone, going after hitters, which kind of area you guys struggled in last year?
Well, I mean, and stuff-wise. I mean, I think it's a confidence thing. I think it's you see one guy doing it, but going back to the Alec Marsh thing, I mean, I think Alec Marsh, when now he's coming out and he's showing, hey, man, this is the way it's supposed to look. You're supposed to be this and 3 pitches plus 3+ pitches in the zone for a strike, field your position, hold. It's easy for us to say, hey, man, watch that guy right there, and that's and so when you start doing that, that builds, it creates an attitude, it creates a mindset, it creates an identity for your pitching staff. I like what I saw this fall, but I'll remind people this league's pretty good. So, until we get out there and start competing, I don't have a definite answer for you. I knew media day was coming, and I knew what types of questions would be asked, and you feel you're lucky to be here, but all that garbage. What I'm excited about is allowing, some tough times we've had the last couple of years to now play itself out. I'm very comfortable with that. Do any of us know the outcome? Absolutely not, but I do. I love the process at which we've been going to get here, and I love that locker room, and I'm excited to see these guys go out and get that bad taste out of their mouth.
A lot of guys have talked about Brady Corrigan's improvement.
Yeah.
Do you see him as like a midweek guy, or maybe more a relief?
Well, I always feel, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, I always feel like I forget guys when I talk in settings, like, because I'm not holding a roster. And so when I said to name a few on those other guys, he's another one. I mean, he really, really improved this fall and could very easily fall into a Sunday starter role or a midweek role on the starting. So, yeah, I mean, I'm pleased with the progress that he's made, not just from a stuff standpoint, but he's physically bigger now. He's mature. He's a year under his belt. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I think, to have him now in a role that's, quite frankly, more suited for him, he's ready for, is going to make us better.
Ryan Burr's here today, and he was down there. You can't put him on the mound. But
well, we kind of wish we could close.
Who do you envision in that role?
Well, there's a variety. I'd say coming out of the fall, I mean, a guy that we're excited about for probably gets the first crack at it is the Brazil, the freshman. He reminds me, quite honestly, a lot of Ryan Burr. I mean, he's that big body, still working on the secondary stuff, but he has enough on the fastball that he can beat you with the fastball. So we'll see. Burr had as you know, a tremendous mindset too. He just, he could almost, I would always joke with him. I said, you could tell him here what's coming. So until we see Blake in that role multiple times, I don't have a comment on that. But stuff-wise, he's got the ability to do that.
What did you see from and like out of Cole Austin?
What's that?
What did you see from Cole Austin?
He's a Swiss Army knife guy too. I mean, he's a guy that can bounce around. Has had a lot of success at a high level in the Big 12 on a very competitive, good baseball team. But he's one of those potential guys that we look that could provide the protection, for Torkelson. Mature hitter, tremendous power, very athletic. The key to him is just making sure he stays healthy.
We've talked a couple times before about the progress that Oregon State made from that team that didn't make the tournament until to what they've done since then. You see that? Is that a valid comparison to where you're at?
Well, I mean, you don't want to get out ahead of your skis a little bit.
I'm
But
not talking about necessarily winning the World Series, but
yeah,
just making, making a big jump.
But I always struggle because people always misinterpret. I've done this before. I've seen teams. I had a team, some teams of the past, that very talented teams that just struggled early on until they got mature. But yeah, I mean, I would say there's some of that. You look at a team that goes off in Oregon State, since you mentioned them, they win the national championship but don't make the tournament the year before. That's how minute sometimes these changes are, and that could be it could be an arm here or there, or a play here and there, or a group of guys in that locker room that affect, to me, that balance. I mean, you strive to get everybody in a talented group moving in the same direction. And I've said this 1,000 times. You not only have to be good, but you also have to be lucky. I mean, Oregon State, a guy drops pop up in foul territory, or they don't win a national championship. So a lot of things come into play. I will just say this, and I'll say it now until we start playing, and probably even then, it's like, I don't know what the outcomes are going to be. I've got a pretty good idea. We'll let all that stuff take care of itself on the field. But what I will say this is, I love this group. I love this team. It has a lot of characteristics of some successful teams I've had in the past, both physically and mentally.